Mandy, what a privilege it is to have you here on the RevRx podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I found you on another podcast, Focus on the Family, one of my favorites. And that podcast really spoke to me in a lot of ways. And I'm like, I've got to have this lady on mine because she is doing fantastic work in the world of tech and culture and families. And so I'd love as we begin our time together, if you would just help our audience get to know you a little bit better. Who are you, Mandy, and how did you find yourself in this place today?
Well, my name is Mandy Majors, and I've been married to my husband, Matt. We've been married now 26 years. We have two kids. They are now 18 and 21, but when my journey started in this, they were 9 and 6.
Okay, I can
And I
resonate
was
with that.
kind of in that, yeah, I was in that first generation of parents that, the iPhone was invented and it started becoming very popular. And I found myself thinking, uh-oh, we are in new territory right now.
Yeah, and with new territory comes a lot of questions, and you're providing a lot of good answers to those questions, and so I appreciate the work you're doing. So, Mandy, I'd love to start our time together with a story I've heard you tell before, and it's one about how you guys started out your journey, you and your husband, and Jesus, as you said, started your journey with boundaries for tech. And you said, we're going to have no tech. Our kids aren't going to have access to this. But then as you begin to pray through this, you became sensitive to the fact that maybe that's not the best way forward. So, can you describe that and kind of how you began your journey? Because the funny thing is, we're raising kids in a world that no other generation of parents has faced, and it's kind of a lot of trial and error, isn't it? So, how did you begin, and then how did you pivot, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, it's an experiment.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad, Chad, that you didn't call me an expert because I have been in this work for 12 years, but I'm not an expert. Like every day there's new tech coming out that we are learning to deal with, right? And so I'm learning every day right alongside of you. But really what shifted for us, we're raising these two kids. They're 9 and 6. Oldest is a girl, youngest is a boy. And our whole thing was the iPhone became popular, was invented, and we were like, they're not getting a phone till they're 30. We're good. Like, we don't have to deal with any of that, right? And I say that facetiously. Like, I know they would get a phone when they wanted to get a phone at 18 or whatever. But in our minds, like, we're just not doing that. We're not going there. And what happened is one day we were just getting ready for school. It was a normal, chaotic day, trying to get to school on time and not get another tardy. And in the middle of all the chaos, one of my children blurted out a highly sexualized question. And when I say highly sexualized, like this was not where do babies come from. I would have given anything to have that question.
That would have been
Um,
easy.
the thing that my child asked me about, I didn't know it existed till I was a 19-year-old college student. So I froze and, my mama brain is like, what has this kid been exposed to? Why are they, why is my child asking about this? I immediately felt like my child's innocence was stolen, like immediately, like just this gut punch, and had no idea how to respond in age appropriate terms to that question because we hadn't even covered the birds and bees yet. We hadn't even covered how babies formed. And so I gathered myself up and I just said to my child, thank you so much for asking me. It's what I always want you to do when you're curious. But we're going to be late for school. So we've just got to talk about this later.
And buy you some time.
I had to buy myself some time. And what I found out through the days and weeks that, happened after was that another child, had watched a pornographic video at home and he shared graphic details at school. And phones were not allowed in our schools back then. So that was kind of my moment. Like when it happened, of course, I told Matt, I mean, we just couldn't believe that our kid had been exposed to porn, graphic porn without phones.
Right, right.
And, through a conversation, but this graphic image was in my child's mind. And that was the moment I realized not just saying no to all technology, not giving it to them, it doesn't really solve the problem. And so we started a journey to figure out, I mean, back then, this was more 12 years ago.
Hmm.
Nobody was talking on this issue. I went to my church. I said, hey, I need help parenting technology. You got a group for me? And my women's director literally started crying and was like, we've been praying for somebody to start a group. It's you. And
You're
I'm
it.
like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Got more
she was
questions
like,
than
let's
answers at
just,
this point. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's an experiment, like you said. So we started a group. It was 20 moms in the beginning, and it grew to 203 semesters. And that's when my church came to me and said, form a nonprofit. We want you to go to every church and school that would have you. And so in 2016, we formed Next Talk, and we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization in the state of Texas. And we travel and we speak and we have a podcast and we work with counselors. Like, it has just grown crazy. It has been a wild ride, and I can't even believe that it's actually happened, quite frankly.
Well, it speaks to the need for advice in this area. You know, I was the best parent in the world until I had kids. We always think we know what we're going to do, and I think, I say that in jest, but a lot of times we think we have a game plan. But what do we do when things happen outside of our control? And that's exactly what happened with you guys. And we're starting to see some of that too. We have a 4, 6, and 9-year-old, so around the same age as what you're describing. And I mean, there's so much. There's only so much you can block. There's only so much you can fortress them. They're just gonna be exposed to some things, and it hurts your parent heart. But there are some ways we can go about handling that. I mentioned earlier, we're raising kids in a world where no other generation of parents has faced. We're aging ourselves a little bit, but yeah, like, we're in the world of dial-up internet when I was growing up, and and there's what are iPhones? We didn't have those, but now we live in a world that's a lot different than how we grew up. What's unique from your vantage point about the technology explosion, and particularly how it pertains to our children today versus how when we grew up?
When I had a question when I was growing up, I would ask my friends and I would get inappropriate stuff, right? Like, I would get inappropriate information from my friends. But literally now they Google it or ask AI. If they ask a highly sexualized question, it's taking them straight to porn. So they're going to see porn immediately. So, one of the things I tell parents all the time, sometimes when your kids ask you a highly sexualized question and you get so mad, and I understand that gut punch moment, but I want you to pause and switch your thinking. Because your child feels safe with you, you saved them from Googling pornography. Right. And we don't think of it like that. We just think of, oh, their innocence has been stolen. But like, we can be the force in their life where they come to. We can be the AI. We can be the Google, but we have to create the relationship. And that's kind of what we've learned on this journey. We went from they're never getting a phone to, oh my gosh, one night we were praying through this, my husband and I, and he said to me, Mandy, technology is their world. They're not going to be able to apply for a job or college without technology. That's not how we grew up, right? But they need to learn it in a healthy way. And so that night he said to me, we need to teach them how to use a phone like we're going to teach them how to drive a car. And when he said that, I was like, explain that to me. What do you mean? Because we had a 9 and 6-year-old. We weren't really thinking, I wasn't thinking about when we're going to teach them to drive a car. And he said, well, think about it. We're not going to start out going 70 miles an hour down the highway. We're going to start out in the driveway. And we probably won't even leave the first time. It'll just be, they're getting familiar with the gas pedal, where everything is, and then maybe a couple months we'll turn it down a road, and then we'll experiment and go down this road. And he said, it's going to happen in steps. And so what if we took the approach of teaching our kids how to use a phone in steps, or any kind of technology, really?
Right.
And so that's what we did. It was a big experiment. Some things we got right, some things we got terribly wrong. But I've learned this. This is, I think, the biggest takeaway that I've learned. We can monitor, we can do random phone checks, we can delay. All of that is great, great stuff. It's not going to keep them safe from everything. But the thing that will is a healthy relationship. When they feel safe coming to you and saying, Mom, I heard this new word on the playground. Mom, I was on the bus and somebody showed me this on their phone. Because because no monitoring app is going to catch that, right?
Mm-mm.
But the relationship will. And I found that solution actually, and it's straight from scripture. I mean, I didn't come up with it. This is the Lord, but it's Deuteronomy 6, 6, and 7. Teach your kids these commands I'm giving you. Talk when you're on the go, when you're at home, when you're getting up, and when you're going to bed. The Lord literally gives us 4 key times to talk with our kids. And what he's saying there is, I want you to create a culture of open communication where you're talking about everything. And in this digital world, that is so important because they get online and they have the opinions of the entire world.
Hmm.
And so it has never been more important to create this relationship. But I would say to you and other young parents, like, I know it's overwhelming, but if you focus more on the relationship building than the time you're researching Wi-Fi routers, like trust the Lord's solution,
Yeah.
you're going to see the fruit from that.
That's so good, and it's counterintuitive a little bit because I think our first inclination, particularly parents of faith, like we want to send our kids to Christian school, and we want to make sure we're surrounding them with people that we know and that we approve of, and there's just going to be things that are going to slip through the cracks. It's going to happen everywhere, and we can't control that. And the first instinct, I think, is exactly what you described. It's that gut punch, and it's the anger. Somebody stole our kids' innocence, and then you start playing the blame game, right? Is it the school's fault, or is it who did this to them? But God, it's almost like He knows what He's doing. It's almost like His word is truth, and I say that, of course, jokingly, because we know it is. In a world full of misinformation and full of lies and full of confusion, we need to go back to that truth. And part of the Shema passage, Deuteronomy 6, is one of my favorites. And he says, talk to your children about the truths of God. And yeah, all those times of the day, in other words, all the time, you should have this constant, ongoing, talking relationship. And I love that because that's not our first instinct. Our first instinct is to protect. So, getting into some of the practical applications of this, one of the things that you say is protection starts with conversation. Protection starts with conversation. And what does that look like? How can we foster this relationship with our children that's not so fear based? Because I think a lot of times they think, okay, well, if I tell mom what I saw, they're going to take my device. Or if I show dad what I saw, then he's going to be mad at me. But how do we foster this in a way that encourages them to have that kind of relationship where we're the first ones they come to whenever something like that happens?
Well, I first want to say protection is good when they're little, and you can control that a little bit,
Mhm.
right? When they're little, you are telling them what they can watch on TV. And they're not really going to friends' houses and hanging out as much. They're not going to school yet and getting exposed. Even youth group. Like we've helped families that kids getting exposed to porn at youth group. We think church is safe, but we live in a broken world, and we want our churches to be full of people who need Jesus, and those people are broken.
Yeah,
So
right.
our kids can be exposed at church too. But I think one thing is we have to move, and there's this shift that happened that I saw. I went from trying to control everything they were consuming when I realized I could no longer do that. Like I could no longer protect them or shield them on my own. Then it was my shift to, I want to teach them to advocate and protect their own heart and mind. And what that looked like in my home was, if you hear a new word, a phrase, or something on the playground, anywhere, online, and you think to yourself, what does that mean? A red flag alert should go off in your brain to come home and ask me. Please don't Google it. Please don't ask AI, because you could get really bad or false information or stuff that you're not ready for yet. Right? Like, just say that to your kids. And so my job is to help you protect your own heart and mind, because if you get an image in your brain, you may not be able to sleep at night because it's bugging you. Just like if you watch a scary movie or you hear something scary. And so my job is just to help you process what you're seeing and hearing. So if you can come home and talk to me, that will be great. And so getting them to open up. We have at Next Talk, we've developed, it's called the Next Talk 10, and it's in my book, but it's free at our nonprofit. But it's all these 10 principles to help build this healthy relationship with your kids. And one of them is the red flag reporting. So you can like go to our website today, download this for free. And the new word, phrase, or idea is just one thing on there. There's like 6 things on there that if these things happen, I want a red flag alert to go off in your brain to come home and ask me. Now, that gets your kid talking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another part of the Next Talk 10 is avoid crazy parent mode. So this is another one.
Yep.
When your kid comes home and confides in you, especially that first time when you're trying to create this new relationship in your home, we cannot go crazy. The default response must be, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you that you came home and asked me. That's what I always want you to do. And if you don't know how to respond right then to their question, because it's really big, say, thank you so much for asking me. Give me a day. I want to just think about and pray about how to give you the information you need without giving you too much that's going to make you anxious or anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then it becomes this beautiful relationship building that will happen. If they can report, they don't get in trouble, they get the information they need, they begin to trust you. And
That's
then
good.
this foundation of a safe place is starting to evolve. And one of the things that I'm passionate about, Chad, is a lot of people see our, titles like keeping kids safe in a digital world, and they think, oh, that's for like parents of teenagers. No, I am wanting to reach parents of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds because
Mm-hmm.
if you implement this red flag reporting at 3, 4, and 5, it is going to make a night and day difference when they finally do earn a phone in the future. And you're teaching them how to use that phone like you're teaching them how to drive.
And that's so wise. And a lot of the responsibility falls on us. You're exactly right. What comes to mind is responding instead of reacting. I think that would be an approach that we could think about that as, okay, let's respond to that question. Let's respond to that red flag report instead of react to it. And I think that's something that we can own and we can take part of and we can have responsibility there. Another thing that I think when it comes to us as parents taking responsibility is how we lead with technology, the model that we set for them. Can you speak to that a little bit, Mandy, about what does it look like for us to be able to responsibly manage technology in front of our kids to kind of set that expectation?
So another one of the Next Talk 10 is look in the mirror. And this is the one that is really hardest because I'm asking parents like, are you using a phone the way you want your kids to use a phone? Right? I mean, if you are at dinner with your family and you are scrolling, you can't get mad at your kids when they eventually earn a phone and then they're at dinner scrolling
Yeah.
because they've seen that behavior from you. So it's really, really important. And even as the kids got older and they actually earned social media and we implemented, they would earn one social media platform at a time because you don't want to earn a phone and then they get 4 social media platforms.
Yeah.
That's going 70 miles an hour down the road
Full
too fast,
access.
right?
Yeah.
It's got to be the step by step. Even as they were earning social media and we were teaching them how to use it. And we were learning it right along with them.
Hmm.
When my daughter learned Instagram, I was learning Instagram.
And they can
And
teach us too.
one of the things that we would talk about is I would talk to her about how it made me feel. I feel left out because these friends are doing this, or this makes me feel bad about my body because I'm seeing these pictures. I would talk to her about my struggles with it so that it normalized. You may struggle with this. This may pop into your brain. We need to talk about it. Like, the enemy loves shame. The enemy loves to keep secrets. And so the more we can get our kids communicating and saying, this made me feel this way, or I
Hmm.
made a mistake. I sent this or posted this, mom, like, help me, right? Again, it's like, thank you so much for telling me. I know you're learning it. We got to learn that that's not okay to comment that or send that or whatever. They are learning it. They are learning it.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. I think it's, a lot of times we just think, all right, they've got a phone. and then we don't really do a lot with it at that point. Okay, you've got a phone, that means you have access to everything. I really like your approach, the stepwise baby step approach. And this the analogy of driving a car. Here's where everything is. You need to master this before you move on to going down the road. Well, now you can go down the road a little bit, but we're not going to jump on the interstate. We're going to stay on just our road and then turn around and come back. Being able to let them earn that, I think, is a really wise move. What does it do to them whenever they are earning that? I mean, I feel like that's got to be a positive thing on their end too. And then a kind of a follow up to that, what did you receive pushback? My friends are fill in the blank. Why can't I fill in the blank? Was that a thing with your kids, or did they just know the expectations?
I think all kids feel left out at some point, even if they have access to technology at this point, because there's so many different platforms and so many different discussion threads going on everywhere. Just know that your kids are going to feel left out. Talk to them about that. Our job is to make sure you're safe. We're not trying to restrict you because we hate you. We're restricting you because we love you. As my kids got older, one of the conversations that I had with them was, we would talk about biblical principles. Like, why would God say marriage can only be between a man and a woman, right? Why would God say that? As they got older and we're talking about cultural issues. And one of the things that I would say to them is, well, honey, do you remember when you wanted Snapchat in third grade? And I said, no, that wasn't because I hated you. Now you have Snapchat. Do you see why I wanted to protect you from that?
That's good.
Like God's heart is to protect us. He doesn't give us restrictions and rules because he hates us. He knows what's best, and we have to trust that he's protecting us. And so use that analogy with your kids with technology. Like, I'm not trying to hate you. I'm not trying to make your life miserable. One of the compromises we made when my kids would feel a little left out is I would say, okay, we can have that app on my phone and you and I can do that together, but you're not ready to fly solo yet on that because it's
That's a
just
good
too much
idea.
dangerous stuff. And so
Yeah.
we would find little compromises where they would see, like, I'm not trying to be horrible to you here. I'm not pulling the dictator card and my house, my rules. Like, I'm not doing all that. I just want to keep you safe.
Yeah. And that's our
And
responsibility. Yeah.
it is our responsibility.
And I think walking them through that process is important as well. I'm a big believer in communication solves a lot of problems. Communication is what we're made to do. And it goes back to that passage you shared in Deuteronomy. But when we explain the why behind things, I think sometimes as parents, we just kind of get this thought of, well, because I said so, right? My house, my rules, and that's just the way it is. And a lot of times our kids ask why, and I know, telling on myself here a little bit, when my kids ask why, I want to say, well, because you don't ask me why, because what I say goes. But the reason they're asking why is not to be annoying. Sometimes, or at least most of the time. The reason they're asking why is because they really want to understand. And explaining that why behind this, I'm not limiting this because I want you to have a miserable life, or because I want you to be unpopular, or I want you to be left out. I'm setting up guardrails so you don't fall off, and I'm setting up guardrails to keep you safe. And I think it goes along too with building that relationship with your kids where there is that trust. Because if they trust you enough to be able to report to you what they found, and you start that early enough, then you're going to, whenever you explain this to them, they're going to think, okay, mom and dad love me. They have my best interest at heart. I can trust them and just go along with it. But I want to fast forward a little bit, and I wonder what your advice would be to someone who maybe they're on the other side of this, and maybe they have a child who's been exposed to things they didn't want them to be exposed to, and they maybe have given them access to technology that now they wish they hadn't. What's the best way to kind of backtrack on that? Because if you've given them access and you take it away, that seems to the child at least kind of a punishment. How would you approach that?
Yeah, so I get asked this a lot at our nonprofit because we try to do a lot of prevention
Hmm.
and with young families, but then we have this whole group of parents like me that this was an experiment. We gave too much too fast, and now we're
Yeah.
wanting to go back.
Right.
Here's what I say don't do. Don't listen to this podcast and go in guns blazing tonight and take away all technology from your kids.
Yeah.
Don't do that because your kids are going to hate you, and that's going to hurt the relationship. And I don't want that for you. Here's how I suggest to approach it. Tell your child, I listened to this podcast. I found this nonprofit. I'm learning about all these ways kids can be exposed to really horrible things online. And I mean, you can go listen to some of our podcasts. We've had kids lose their lives because of online predators on Instagram, right? And so like kids are losing their lives because of Instagram schemes. And tell them I'm learning and I'm getting educated about this. And I owe you an apology. I did not know how dangerous this was when I gave you access to everything. And so, what I would love to do is talk together about ways that we can make you more safe online. Like we can create some boundaries. Now, parents, I will tell you my number one part of the next Talk 10 is to create guidelines, right? I'm all about the relationship. So good. But it is our job as parents to have rules and restrictions and guidelines in place for our kids. And so one of our guidelines is no technology in bedrooms. It's very, very important. And so that is the one thing that I would try and implement first in your home. So when you're having this conversation with your child, I would say something like, listen, how would you feel about if we all did this as a family? We're not going to have screens in our bedrooms at night. And if you need to know reasons why to list out to your kids, like I have a podcast on that, 4 reasons
Hmm.
why I kept screens out of my kids' bedrooms and bathrooms. You can go listen to that. It's science. There's science there with actual brain science that you need sleep and you need to turn off devices 30 minutes before you go to bed. So it's the scientific part, but the other 3 are really protections. We see a dramatic increase in kids in watching pornography late at night when they have their phones. I mean, that is a safe space and they feel almost okay to do anything. Like nobody's going to see this. And we know that's where Satan likes to show up the most. So don't even have that temptation. And there's 2 other reasons there that you could go listen to that, but explain that and say, let's do this as a family. Now, they may say, well, you're going to have your phone in your room and you may need to because of a work emergency. I've explained that to my kids before. My phone is near my bed because of work emergency. And now I have a college daughter, right? And so my phone's going to be by my bed in case she needs me. But I'm not scrolling Instagram at 2 a.m. That's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that has been a rule in our home from the beginning. And now my kids are older and they're like, we're so glad you didn't give us a TV and technology in our rooms. Like that was such a good call. And I'm like, well, it was Jesus, teaching me how to do that. But my 18-year-old son is still here and he's getting ready to leave to go to college. He still puts his phone on the kitchen island every night.
Awesome.
It has been standard operating procedure. Now we're getting ready to reward him with his phone in his room, as we did with my daughter about 6 months before she left for college, because I don't want the first time for them to have a phone overnight to be alone in a dorm room. I'm scared that my kids may fall into temptation, right? And so my job is to prepare them for this world. And that is going to be having a phone in their dorm at night. So we'll catch my 18-year-old doing something amazing as we did with my daughter, and he will earn his phone before he goes to college in his room. But I don't recommend it. Anybody younger than 17 should not have a phone in their room. And they have to be trustworthy. If they're lying to you, if they're sneaking, they don't earn that yet. You just delay that and delay that.
It's individualized, and I like that approach because I don't think there's a one size fits all because every child's different. And just like with driving a car, you individualize that to the child, and whenever they're ready, you give them a little more, but you don't give it before they're ready. And so I love that. I love the work you're doing, and I just want to reemphasize this part about we're not saying don't use guidelines. We're not saying don't use the guardrails. Like those need to happen, but that alone is not the answer. That in combination with the conversation piece is really what the evidence is showing that makes the biggest difference. Mandy, one last thing: if we've got some guys out there that are just kind of struggling with this, what's one simple next step that you could give them to lead their family well in this digital world?
Well, no matter where you are in this journey, if you're pausing and you're thinking, I need to do something different, I don't like my plan that I have, I would say get with your spouse and pray. Talk about it. Like, get educated. Figure out, like, go to our website. We have all different things you can do, and think about what is going to be our strategy here. You just need a strategy, and it may look different for your family, but God is going to give you wisdom
Yes.
in what your child needs. So, husband and wife being in prayer about this and intentional, very, very important. Being on the same page about how you're going to handle it, even in co-parenting situation, divorced
Mm.
homes, we need to be on the same page to keep our kids safe. We need to be working together, same rules, digital rules in both homes. So pray about it and get on the same page.
Yeah. I love that so much. And as much as you want what's best for your child, God wants it even more. So leaning into him, he's going to give you what you need. He's good and he's faithful and he's full of wisdom. And if we can plug into that, I think we'll be heading in the right direction. Well, Mandy, can you tell our listeners where to find you, your nonprofit, and of course, I'll put all the links in the show notes as well.
Yeah, our website is nexttalk.org. There's two T's in there. Are you ready for the next talk kind of thing? Nexttalk.org. And we are most active on Facebook and Instagram. You can find our pages. They're on our website as well. You can DM me there. You can email me through our website. We're here to help you. We are a nonprofit. We have donors who support our work. So if you are struggling or need help or want to know, do you have a resource for this? Reach out and we'll put you in the right direction. We're here to serve families and kids.
You're doing extremely valuable work, and so I appreciate you lending your voice to us today on the podcast, and just wish blessings for you and your team that you have working with you. It's important. We need it, and we thank you for the work you're doing. Appreciate you, Mandy.
Thank you.